Well, hi, friends. Good morning. You're going to get something a little different today. Are you ready for our weekly Lenormand reading? I just woke up and I laid out my cards, which I always do on a daily. This is how I stay connected, right? So I lay them out, and then throughout the week, then it or the day, in the case of daily, I lay them out, and then I go back and I read them, and I can see the additional meanings, or it's kind of like learning a new vocabulary, right? Or adding to your vocabulary. Well, today I laid them all out, and I'm like, wow. I can totally see where things have unfolded in this past week. And I know that there is a fine line between the thoughts in our head and how we perceive reality, right? It's kind of like an aha moment. And so, anyways, I'm laying them out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's right there: the sun, the stars, the whip, and the anchor. So, that would be like your thoughts and your guidance systems and your spirituality. Well, the I forgot to tell you the cross is there. That is all interconnected. It's how we perceive things. Not necessarily everyone perceives things the same way. So, whereas I would lay this out, it would have the meaning to me, but not necessarily the same meaning to you, given my circumstance versus your circumstance. But we are all still dealing with the same energies, right? So, I find it fascinating. To some people, it might look like spiritual psychosis, but I just find it psychologically very challenging and interesting. So I approach it a little differently than most people. I approach it from like a childlike wonderment, a curiosity. I do revert back to my childhood quite frequently because it is our past that shapes who we are, right? Well, I want to know what's in it for the future, how the past shaped who we are today to help us get through to the future, right? So, that would come into play, your the things that you've learned, your schooling. It's also your environment, right? And it's also the people that you surround yourself with that either add value or teach you lessons. I've always said there's an equal amount of give, or there should be an equal amount of give and take, and no one should take more than they need, and no one should give more than they have. So I feel like that is where society kind of, they say it's not fair. Well, the universe is non-partial, right? So the universe will give us exactly what we need when we need it. So if you have faith in that, then you'll get through life easier. Let's put it that way. It's when we kind of fight it that things can get a little painful. Said that before too. But that's the truth. I can't stress that enough. The mice are there. The mice have a dis-ease feeling about them. When you have dis-ease, it can create disease, right? So you need to remove the things that create that stress. And then that is going to promote a healing um, environment, or a fresh slate feel. Um, you know, Surgery is an example. You know how they'll go in and they'll remove something that is, you know, weakened. Let's put it that way. Or fix and mend what can be fixed. That's been broken. Whether that's a broken leg, or just anything. Um, then there's some people that get surgery for vanity purposes. I refuse to do that, but just there are different things that we as society feel belongs and doesn't belong, or needs to be corrected, or needs to be changed, and that's a personal preference, right? But in some cases, it is a necessity, for health purposes. Um, you know, I think it's a lot to do with the society that we surround ourselves with. Whereas, if you were in a spiritual community, by seeing signs and synchronicities, that's going to feel like you're spiritually gifted. You go off into reality with that, and people are going to think you're crazy, right? Well, I think that there is a balancing act, and I have, I can see it from both sides, right? I'm very well read when it comes to psychology, from being, in it and dealing with certain people and learning about it. And I'm constantly searching, my brain is constantly searching. But I do see where there are energies that we all are dealing with. And I think that that's the difference, or I think that that's the answer. Um, it's not about, somebody telling you whether you're right or wrong. It's you figuring it out for yourself, right? Well, this week I'm going to just go ahead and read what came out this morning. Okay, we've got the tower. The tower is in a focal spot here, which means justice and fairness, right? I have no problem, someone being mean to me, right? I have no problem with that. It's when I see other people being mistreated, the injustices, because I can remove myself. I don't have a problem with that. Um, and then we've got the house and we've got the ring. Those are your close connections. That's your family, your friendships, your workspaces. It's those people that are important to you on a daily basis, right? I have lots of different interests, I have 3 different careers if you want to get technical. So I find myself toggling in and out of all of my interests and activities on a daily basis, along with my children, right? The clouds are in the center. The clouds are very much uncertainties or fears, concerns, but it's your thoughts. And that is going to all depend on your your mental status at the moment, right? So if you're in fear, you're going to have fearful thoughts. If you are in a creative energy, you're going to have creative thoughts. And I always say the greatest skill you will ever develop is the ability to figure it out. And that is the key. So, and then when the other thing that I do on a regular basis is I find my key in my layout. My key is going to be the solution or the answer, right? And underneath that is the lilies, or are the lilies, plural. The lilies, that's your integrity, that's your honesty, your loyalty, your trustworthiness. It's those things. So if you lead with integrity, you can't go wrong, right? So that's the solution if anybody wants to know. And that is the anchor. The other thing that I do is I pull a clarifier, and today I pulled the anchor. So that is, that's not me searching for something. That's clear as a bell right here, right? That's why I find it so fascinating. When I look at the anchor on the board, underneath the anchor is the bear. The bear's courage, strength. It's your nurturing energies. It's mothering. So it takes on the mother, sister, daughter archetypal energy or frequency. Around the stars, though, is the sun, the whip, the anchor, and the cross. That is your soul group, your soul ties, So that would be my advice, is just to surround yourself with like-minded individuals that can understand you, right? But we're also here to help other people, right? We're not here just in it to win it, to serve ourselves. We're in it as a remembership. Everybody coming together and basically help take care of one another, right? I see the snake in the coffin that has that restoration feel to it, but its coffin is that introspection, right? It's going within, and you will find your truth within, right? It's not somebody else's truth; it's your own truth. And right from wrong. At least I know right from wrong. I mean, that's one of the things that we had to do growing up. It was, I mentioned this before, we had to write essays, and essays were a way for us to on paper describe how we feel, what we did wrong, how things, how we could have done things differently, but how it affected others was weighed heavily on. My mom was real big on, teaching us lessons, and not to be so selfish or what's that other word I'm looking for? Self-centeredness. It's to see how this affected other people. I know it was all age appropriate too. If you were in first grade, you had to write a 100-word essay. Well, if you did something major, you were writing a 10,000-word essay. and those just got to be, redundant and repetitive, but at least I think you were taking the time out to really think about what you may have done wrong. And not always were you in the wrong. So sometimes you got to defend yourself. So let's see, what else do I see? I do see spiritual protection. I've been seeing that so often lately. The clover and the sun and the cross, that gives that feeling of, you are being protected. And, if you've been like brushed with death or, recently in an accident and you came out where you're okay, or a surgery that ended up being successful, those are the things that the times in your life that I feel that you have, you know, angels or guides, that are protecting you. Um, I feel like everyone here, is kind of on a mission, right? We have lessons that we learn. Some contracts come to an end and another one starts, that's where you'll see people changing their careers, they're on to their next lesson or, assignment, I call it. Let's see, what else do I see? I kind of see where there is going to be some sort of a travel booking plan in the making. I feel like, that might be for some folks. I see the fox and the tree, which is, that's healing, healthcare. The flowers are there. So I feel like that's kind of, maybe can be in all different areas of the life of your life too, not necessarily in one area, but healthcare practitioners, but that could be mental, physical, and spiritual, right? It doesn't have to be just one in one area. So I feel like being well-rounded is very important there. If you are missing one component, it can put everything kind of out of whack. Your finances, your your body, mind, and spirit feeling to it. Okay. Let's see. I do see where the bear and the mice are there. That is like, the strength and courage that it takes to overcome the fears and worries and concerns. That should be, exercised daily. Don't let your fears or worries get ahead of you. You need to pull back a little bit, and maybe make a list of all the things that you need to accomplish and start checking them off. Because if you handle those little things, all of a sudden, you've accomplished something big, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, feel. Let's see, what else do I see? I do see either a canceled event or a broken relationship or a contract that's been changed yeah, it has that severing kind of feel to it. Okay, the crossroads are there. So even though something might have been canceled or ended, just know that that's going to open up the doorway to a better lifestyle, because the lilies are there. That's my lifestyle card. It's also a career for longevity. Okay, and it has to do with your finances. So just know that rejection is spiritual protection or redirection, however you would like to look at that. So because the stork is there. The stork is kind of my change card to redirect, but it's also kind of a migration card and transformational in nature. Okay. I still say get out there in nature as often as you can. That has a grounding, feeling to it, but it's also, nature has a lot to teach us. Okay. Lots of aha moments too with the stars and the whip there and the clouds. I feel like, your thoughts, can kind of act like, a storm, that's why you need to still your mind, and that way you can process it without feeling overwhelmed or confused. Okay. Let's see, what else do I see? Yeah, I see things from a higher perspective, though. Not everybody is, they're learning. They're on the same learning journey as we all are. So, it's hard to get upset with someone when you know what they've been through, right? So just be mindful of that and be understanding. some people need help, right? So that's my nature, is to help those who need me. I go where I'm wanted and I'm needed. If I'm no longer needed, then I'm on to my next my next project. But some people, and I hate to use the word narcissist, because really it's just people who have been through a lot, a lot of trauma. But if you can understand why people are the way that they are, you can't even get mad. So it's an understanding, right? And some people don't, some people are reaching out for help. Some people can't be helped or don't want to be helped. So those are the people that you just, you back away slowly. That's what I say, where the snake is there. Let's see, what else do I see? Yeah, I see, instinct, pay attention to your instincts. The moon, the fox, and the stork, those are kind of, the gut instinct feeling. And, birds, they know instinctively what to do. So just really pay attention to, your feelings. I always say, if you tip forward, that's a yes. If you tip back, it's a no. So just kind of hold it right here and go inward. Okay. Let's see, what else do I see? There might be a little bit of loss of money, but just know that, things will open up and it will improve there. Some money going out, but it'll be all right. I do see a new chapter and a new beginning, though, after an ending. The coffin is an ending or conclusion. I hate the word ending, though, because that kind of has like a connotation of, bad, and it's not. It's actually, an opening to the next opportunity or venture or adventure. So, but that's why we have our memories. Our memories can go back and look and experience it that way. But let's not get trapped in the past. Let's, focus on what's ahead. Not focus, but look forward to, okay? Be mindful of those challenges that you overcame, though, and let that help you get onto your next project, okay? Kind of like, if you're doing something and you learn by doing and you know what you've done wrong, to know what to correct for the next time you're doing it, right? And you can apply that to everything. There might be something standing in your way, but then the crossroads are there and the stork, so things are definitely opening up. So what seemed to be an obstacle is actually just a delay that's, some things take a little bit more time. I see a little bit of breadcrumbing going on, though. The mice and the letter. That's just like little pieces, just to kind of, keep you there, feel to it. Let's see, what else? I see the flowers and the fox. That's definitely, it's kind of a recovery, maybe, doctor feel to it too. But it can also be beauty related. From like a career standpoint, but it can also be somebody that's being, fake or false. So just be mindful of that too, there's like fake apologies, there's, false to your face, there's, people that aren't real genuine. A lot of times people will say things to you because they think that that's what you want to hear. That's not the case. Honesty is always the best policy. And when we go back to revert back to our key, and our key is, are the lilies. And, I just feel like, just keep your moral compass in check, okay? And not be gullible. That's a little bit of it too, the naivete. Don't don't always take some things to heart, and don't always, maybe let that feed your ego either. Just keep things in check, okay? Let's see, what else do I see? Uh, hmm. I do see a positive change of events, though. Partnerships, because we've got the gentleman and the lady right next to each other. And then the fox and the bear, that's another, that's another partnership combination, too. Um, I just say, while you're in any sort of a limbo or waiting period, just take care of yourself. That's the best time to, or the best way to spend your time, right? Spend your time wisely. I do see help is coming still, though. I like to see that. We're all here to help one another, right? All right, folks. Well, this was my early morning reading, so please forgive, this. But at least I'm authentic and, present, so that's all that really matters, right? I love you all, and you have a blessed week. Take care.